All right, guys. We are in share mode with the book. I've got 5 more copies coming in, as I said, so we'd still be in share mode, but not so bad. Many of you have already found there's a PDF version online for free, so you guys could look at that too if you prefer. I do have Go Guardian up, so please don't be like... I think you guys are going to like the book, is I guess the easy thing to say. Good success with first and third period. Remember, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to do it with... I'm doing it with third, at least so far. Day 1 was a success, I think. Fourth period, nope. Nope. Didn't even... They couldn't even... So what we're going to do, as we talk about, as we get to the concepts, we will discuss them. I'm not erasing what we got to today, so you know what we're going to get to today if we read that far. Robert A. Heinlein, Starship Troopers. Some of you are reading the back. Do you want to read the back together real quick?
Yes. I don't have one.
If you don't have a copyright with you, just go to somebody that has one. If you have the PDF version, obviously you don't have the back. It says, quotes, all the reviews, right? First, they got a classic. If you want a great military adventure, this one's for you. That was from allsci-fi.com. Other reviews from Science Fiction Weekly. Nothing has come along that can match it. From SF Reviews, which is probably sci-fi, I guess. I don't know. Or San Francisco. I have no idea. A book that continues to resonate and influence to this day, and one whose popularity and luster hasn't been dimmed despite decades of imitations. It's been imitated. Heinlein's genius at its height in this timeless classic that is as meaningful today as when it was written. A fast-paced novel that never gets preachy. This is a definite must-have, must-read book. Okay, let's flip the first page. Again, if you don't have this, that's okay. A little bit about the author. Robert Anson Heinlein. That's almost a really cool name. Right? Was born in Missouri in 1907 and was raised there. Yes, Missouri is the correct pronunciation for that state. Yes. I suppose you can. You guys okay with maybe reducing the chatter? We're starting the book. Yeah, if you hadn't noticed. He graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy in 1929, but he was forced by illness to retire from the Navy in 1934, which means how much time did he actually serve as an officer? 5 years. Good. You can subtract 29 from 34. Good. Not surprising. You all are an advanced group. Heinlein settled in California and over the next 5 years held a variety of jobs while doing postgraduate work in mathematics and physics at the University of California. What is postgraduate work? After you graduated what? College, what degree? After you graduate bachelor's, now you're a graduate, so anything past that is postgraduate work. In 1939, he sold his first science fiction story to Astounding magazine and soon devoted himself to the genre. You guys know what a genre is. Good. He was a 4-time winner of the Hugo Award for his novels Stranger in a Strange Land, Starship Troopers, Double Star, and The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. His future history series, incorporating both short stories and novels, was first mapped out in 1941. The series charts the social, political, and technological changes shaping human society from the present through several centuries into the future. Heinlein's books were among the first works of science fiction to reach bestseller status in both hardcover and paperback. He continued to work into his 80s. Good for him. And his work never ceased to amaze, entertain, and generate controversy. By the time he died in 1988, it was evident that he was one of the formative talents of science fiction, a writer whose unique vision, unflagging energy, and persistence over the course of 5 decades made a great impact on the American mind. Okay. Acknowledgements. So before books, sometimes authors want to acknowledge certain people or things, right? Says the stanza from the Ethan by Rudyard Kipling at the head of chapter 7 is used by permission. He's saying, hey, I got permission of Mr. Kipling's estate. Quotations from the lyrics of the ballad Roger Young are used by permission of the author Frank Loesser. And then it says, to Sarge Arthur George Smith, soldier, citizen, and scientist, and to all sergeants, any when. Is that a typo? Or what does that mean? Anytime. To the sergeants, any when who labored to make men out of boys. Well, you're welcome, Robert. Because I was a sergeant, right? Cool. Chapter 1, page 1. You guys ready? I got a group. Are you guys reading it on your own? Oh, y'all. What are y'all reading? Oh, okay. Like I thought you guys were just antsy, like you were all actually reading ahead. What? It's right there. I don't know. Google PDF version of Starship Troopers.
Starship Troopers 3 PDF.
There you go.
Second.
Now, I already had one student. She seems like she's liking it, and I'm like, you like it? She denied it, but then she said she was going to read ahead. Well, why would you read ahead if you didn't like it? So I'm a little confused. I would ask that if you want to read ahead, I don't care, but as long as it doesn't distract you from keeping up, because we will be dissecting it a little bit. Because some of this stuff you'll be like, what does that mean? And I've got enough experience that I can tell you what it means. And also for the science. Okay. Chapter 1, page 1. Come on, you apes! You want to live forever? Says an unknown platoon sergeant in 1918. What war was being fought in 1918? World War I. Good. So you can kind of imagine some sergeant somewhere trying to rally his troops, right? You want to live forever? Or do we want to win this battle? The correct answer is let's go, right? Okay. I always get the shakes before a drop. I've had the injections, of course, the hypnotic preparation, and it stands to reason that I can't really be afraid. The ship's psychiatrist has checked my brain waves and asked me silly questions while I was asleep, and he tells me that it isn't fear. It isn't anything important. It's just like the trembling of an eager racehorse in the starting gate. I couldn't say about that. I've never been a racehorse. But the fact is, I'm scared silly every time. Has he done a drop before? He says, I always get the shakes before a drop. So he's done it before. Has he done it several times? That's the impression you get, right? So he's done this a bunch of times before. He's always afraid. At D minus 30, what's D? Not here. It's the drop. They're about to do the drop. In 30 minutes? Doesn't say. I'm guessing 30 minutes. They're going to do the drop. At D minus 30, after we had mustered in the drop room of the Roger Young, our platoon leader inspected us. The Roger Young. What is the Roger Young? What? It's the ship. So they're on a ship named the Roger Young. They have been mustered to the drop room. What do you think the word muster means there? Taken, or they just went to, they gathered. Guys, they gathered in the drop room. They've been called to the drop room. Like, hey, we're about ready. Let's go. He wasn't our regular platoon leader because Lieutenant I always get it wrong, Razak had bought it on our last drop. Which means what? He died. He bought it on our last drop. He was really the platoon sergeant, career ships Sergeant Jalal. Jelly, as they called him, was a Finno-Turk from Iskander around Proxima. A swarthy little man who looked like a clerk, but I've seen him tackle 2 berserk privates so big that he had to reach up and grab them, crack their heads together like coconuts, step back out of the way while they fell. Finno-Turk, which means what descent? Finnish and Turkish. Okay? But then it says he's from Iskander around Proxima. Maybe Proxima Centauri? I mean, we don't know for sure, but around, so clearly we have Iskander is some sort of a colony ship or moon around, I'm guessing, a planet called Proxima. Does that make sense? So what does that tell us about humanity? We've moved out. We've colonized some places. Okay. What the heck is a swarthy little man?
Small.
Is it small? So you'd say a little man? Or a small little man? Swarthy. Look that word up. Swarthy. S-W-A-R-T-H-Y. Huh? Dark-skinned. Okay, swarthy little man. Well, if he's of Turkish and Finnish descent, okay, so he'd be kind of tan. But he's tough. So he's small, but he's tough. Off duty, he wasn't bad for a sergeant. You could tell, you could even call him Jelly to his face. So it's his nickname. But not recruits, of course. But anybody who had made at least one combat drop. Does that make sense? So he didn't mind more experienced, like veterans. People that have at least done one combat drop, he didn't mind them calling him by kind of his nickname. So he's kind of cool. But if you were a fresh recruit, you haven't earned the right to call him Jelly yet. Does that make sense? Okay. Right now, he was on duty, though. We had each inspected our combat equipment. Look, it's your own neck, see? The acting platoon sergeant had gone over us carefully after he mustered us, and now Jelly went over us again, his face mean, his eyes missing nothing. He stopped by the man in front of me, pressed the button on his belt that gave readings on his physicals. Fall out. So how many of y'all have like one of these watches that gives you readouts of your own vitals? Your heart rate? Diabetics even have ones that check their blood sugar, right? Every like 5 minutes or whatever it is. Heart rate, maybe they could do blood pressure. I don't know. These suits they're wearing might. Anyway, imagine this platoon leader who's just been promoted into the position, right? We'd call that a field promotion. He hasn't been to school to be an officer. Does that make sense? The officer died. So the head enlisted man just got promoted to that spot. If he wants to keep it, later on he'll have to go to school. Does that make sense? Anyway, he's inspecting the troops before they go on a drop, before they go on a mission. And I'm guessing he probably noticed this guy looks sick. So he pushes a button on his like utility belt type thing, and there's a readout. So he didn't like whatever he saw because he said, fall out. But Sarge, it's just a cold. The surgeon said, and then Jelly interrupted him, but Sarge, he snapped. The surgeon ain't making no drop, and neither are you, with a 1.5 degree fever. You think I got time to chat with you just before a drop? Fall out. Jenkins left us looking sad and mad, and I felt bad too, because of the lieutenant buying it, last drop, and people moving up to the next position up, right? I was now assistant section leader. Second section, this drop. And now I was going to have a hole in my section and no way to fill it. That's not good. It means a man can run into something sticky, call for help, and have nobody to help him. Jelly didn't down check anyone else. Presently, he snapped out in front of us, looked us over, and shook his head sadly. What a gang of apes, he growled. Maybe if you'd all buy it this drop, they could start over and build the kind of outfit the lieutenant expected you to be. But probably not with the sort of recruits we get these days. He suddenly straightened up, shouted, I just want to remind you, apes, that each and every one of you has cost the government, counting weapons, armor, ammo, instrumentation, and training, everything, including the way you overeat, has cost on the hoof better than $500,000. Add the 30 cents you're actually worth, and that runs to quite a sum. Is he actually insulting them? If you just look at the words, he just said they're worth 30 cents. Right? Is he giving them a talking down? Or is he being gruff with them? Is he? Have you ever had anybody play sports? Okay. Have you ever had a coach, or maybe you've seen where a coach is yelling at his or her team, and maybe even makes some insulting comments? Are they doing it because they don't like them? No, they're doing it because they actually do care about them, and they're wanting them to be very careful or very good at what they're about to do. He says, so bring it back. We can spare you, but we can't spare that fancy suit you're wearing. I don't want any heroes in this outfit. The lieutenant wouldn't like it. You got a job to do. You go down, you do it. You keep your ears open for recall. You show up for retrieval on the bounce and by the numbers. Get me? Again, he says something that sounds like, if you weren't tracking the mood, you might think when he said we can spare you, he doesn't care about your life, right? He does. He does. He glared again. You're supposed to know the plan, but some of you ain't got any minds to hypnotize, so I'll sketch it out. You'll be dropped in 2 skirmish lines, calculated 2,000-yard intervals. What's a skirmish line? What's a skirmish? A fight. A skirmish, though, do we think a big fight, like a battle scene? A skirmish is like a scuffle. Well, maybe more than that in this case. Let's listen. 2 skirmish lines. So they're going to have 2 lines set up to engage somehow. 2,000-yard intervals. So the people will be 2,000 yards away from each other. How far is 2,000 yards? Very good. 6,000 feet. Very quick. How much is a football field? 100 yards. So 20 football fields long between each person. How could they manage that? Don't think like Vietnam era. You've got your little kit, but you're pretty much bare. Aren't they wearing something? They're wearing some kind of a suit. Okay. Get your bearing on me as soon as you hit. Get your bearing and distance on your squad mates, both sides, while you take cover. You've wasted 10 seconds already, so you smash and destroy whatever's at hand until the flankers hit dirt. What are flankers? What's a flank? Sides. The flanks are the sides. So they're in a line. They're in a line formation, okay? The flankers are the far right guy and the far left guy. Does that make sense? So it says, take cover. Get your bearing as soon as you hit. Get your bearing and distance on your squad mates, both sides. Take cover. You've wasted 10 seconds already. You smash and destroy whatever's at hand until the flankers hit dirt. So they are causing chaos. They're destroying stuff. And then the flankers hit. So they land. He was talking about me, an assistant section leader. I was going to be the left flanker. With nobody at my elbow, I began to tremble. So if he's the left flanker, that means everybody is on his right. Nobody's over here to defend his flank. He's it. He's the far outside. Any football folks? No football folks. We got one. On defense, who's the flanker? The end. They used to actually, back in the day, used to call them flankers, right? So the guy on the end, if you're on offense, you're trying to outflank the enemy. You're trying to get around, right? If you're on defense, the flanker, the end, or sometimes the cornerback, right, will be like, don't let anybody outside of you, right? Push everybody to the inside. So you have help, right? Maintain the containment. You heard the word contain? Okay. Anyway, where was I? Once they hit, straighten out those lines. Equalize those intervals. So if you're not quite at 2,000 yards, make it about 2,000 yards between you. Drop what you're doing and do it. 12 seconds. Then advance by leapfrog, odd and even, assistant section leaders minding the count and guiding the envelopment. So they're taking turns every other bounding. You're going to find out what that means. The other every other is doing what while they're bounding? They're covering them. If any bad guys show up, they're providing cover fire. Does that make sense? So that they can advance. Okay. So they're in a line, they're advancing, and the word envelop means to what? To surround. It says guiding the envelopment. He looked at me, because he's going to be one of them that's kind of guiding that, right? If you've done this properly, which I doubt, the flanks, those two flankers, will make contact as recall sounds, at which time home you go. Home being what? The ship. Any questions? So they're going to land. They're going to start engaging their target area. The flankers, once they hit, are going to start basically guiding the encirclement. It's like a pincer movement, right? They're going to pinch off that whole area. Just by the time they make contact, by the time they close that circle, everything in that circle should be smashed. Everything should be destroyed. Does that make sense? Okay. Hold on. I gotta like mark my spot or something. There weren't any questions. There never were. He went on. One more word. This is just a raid, not a battle. It's a demonstration of firepower and frightfulness. Our mission is to let the enemy know that we could have destroyed their city, but didn't. But that they aren't safe even though we refrain from total bombing. You'll take no prisoners. You will kill only when it can't be helped. Are they trying for mass casualties here? No. But the entire area we hit is to be smashed. I don't want to see any of you loafers. What's a loafer? Lazy people. I don't want to see any of you loafers back aboard here with unexpended bombs. So you're supposed, everything you're carrying, all your ordnance, you're going to expend it. You're going to use it to smash that area. If you have to kill one of the enemy versus taking the prisoner, if they get in your way, yeah. Otherwise, if you can help it, don't. What are they trying to do? No prisoners right now. Scare them. They're trying to scare them. Are they trying to stay there and hold territory? No, they're just supposed to smash stuff and get out, letting the enemy know they could have done more if they wanted to. They're also not trying to kill. Think for a second, why would there be a military operation just to scare the enemy? Well, they definitely want the enemy to think they're powerful. So they won't what? So they don't want, they're wanting to stop the fight. They're wanting to, like, oh my gosh, they just completely destroyed this area. It seems like if they wanted to, they could have destroyed everything. They could have killed it, but they didn't. Why? It's a message. They're trying to send a message. Does that make sense? Like, don't mess with us. Look what we can do. Okay, next page. Not much more, and we're going to get to this vocab, which you guys mostly know anyway. Get me? He glanced at the time. Raznacks, roughnecks have got a reputation to uphold. The lieutenant told me before he bought it to tell you that he will always have his eye on you every minute, and he expects your names to shine. Jelly glanced over at Sergeant Miglacio, first section leader. 5 minutes for the Padre, he stated. Some of the boys dropped out of ranks, went over and knelt in front of Miglacio, and not necessarily those of his creed either. Muslims, Christians, Gnostics, Jews, whoever wanted a word with him before a drop, he was there. What is he? What is Sergeant Miglacio? You have Muslims, Christians, Gnostic, Jews, whoever wanted a word with him before the drop, he was there for them. So some of the men went over to him. You what? Preacher? He said 5 minutes for the Padre. Padre. Spanish for father, right? What religion do we think he probably is? Probably Catholic, especially with that name, right? But he's catering to Muslims, Gnostics, Jews, whoever wanted to talk to him. What is he? He's a chaplain. Okay. I've heard tell that there used to be military outfits whose chaplains did not fight alongside the others, but I've never been able to see how that could work. I mean, how can a chaplain bless anything he's not willing to do himself? In any case, in the mobile infantry, everybody drops. And everybody fights. Chaplain and cook and the old man's rider. Who's the old man's rider? The commander's secretary or assistant. Even then, everybody fights. Once we went down the tube, there wouldn't be a roughneck left aboard, except Jenkins, of course, and that wasn't his fault. He's sick, right? I didn't go over. I was always afraid somebody would see me shake if I did, and anyhow, the Padre could bless me just as handily from where he was. But he came over to me as the last straggler stood up and pressed his helmet against mine to speak privately. Johnny, he said quietly, this is your first drop as a non-com, non-commissioned officer. Everybody moved up. When the lieutenant died, that vacancy was filled by the platoon sergeant, but that left no platoon sergeant. So one of the section leaders became platoon sergeant, which left no section leader, which means one of the assistant section leaders had to become the section leader, which meant there was no assistant section leader in Rico's section. So Johnny Rico just became assistant section leader. He just became a non-com, non-commissioned officer. He hadn't gone to school for that. Maybe someday he'll go. We'll find out. Okay. Where are we? It's not his fault, Johnny. Yeah, first drop as non-com. Yeah, I wasn't really a non-com any more than Jelly was really an officer. Neither of them had been to that next level school. Just this, Johnny. Don't buy a farm. AKA, what's it mean to buy a farm? If you bought it. Die. It's an old expression, you guys. You're too young. You haven't been exposed to it much, probably, if at all. If somebody buys the farm, that means they died. Or if you bought it, that means you died. So the Padre, the chaplain, says just this, Johnny, don't buy the farm. He's telling him not to die. You know your job, do it. Just do it. Don't try to win a medal. Don't try to do anything extra. Just get the job done. Thanks, Padre. I shan't. What's shan't? I shall not. Good. He added something gently in a language I don't know, patted me on the shoulder, and hurried back to his section. Jelly called out, "Attention!" and we all snapped to. Platoon! Section! My sections, port and starboard, right? Left, right. I always get those two confused. I'm not Navy. Prepare for drop. Section. Man your capsules. Move. Squad. I had to wait for while squads 4 and 5 manned their capsules and moved on down the firing tube before my capsules showed up on the port track. So there's tracks on either side of the ship with these like capsules in it that they get into. They'll move forward and drop out of the tube. There's one tube on each side, it sounds like. They're going to tell us. Before my capsule showed up on the port track and I could climb into it. I wondered if those old timers got the shakes as they climbed into the Trojan horse. You guys get that reference, right? Or was it just me? Jelly checked each man as he was sealed in, and he sealed me in himself. As he did so, he leaned toward me and said, "Don't goof off, Johnny. This is just like a drill." The top closed on me and I was alone. Just like a drill, he says. I began to shake uncontrollably. Then in my earphones, I heard Jelly from the center line tube. "Bridge, Rasnacks, Roughnecks, ready for drop." 17 seconds, Lieutenant. I heard the ship's captain, cheerful contralto, replying, and resented her for calling Jelly Lieutenant. Because is he really Lieutenant? No. To be sure, our lieutenant was dead, and maybe Jelly would get his commission, but we were still Rasnacks, Roughnecks. She added, "Good luck, boys." "Thanks, Captain. Brace yourselves. 5 seconds. I was strapped all over, belly, forehead, shins, but I shook worse than ever. So he's got all this equipment strapped to him in his suit, right? And yet somehow he's still shaking. Okay. I think we have just maybe a smidge more time. Yes? No? Maybe? Smidge more. It's better after you unload. So he's loaded in this capsule, in the tube. Until you do, you sit there in total darkness, wrapped like a mummy against the acceleration, barely able to breathe, and knowing that there is just nitrogen around you in the capsule, even if you could get your helmet off, which you can't, and knowing that the capsule is surrounded by the firing tube anyway, and if the ship gets hit before they fire you, you haven't got a prayer. You'll just die there, unable to move, helpless. Are you feeling claustrophobic just reading that? No? Okay, good for you. It's that endless wait in the dark that causes the shakes, thinking that they've forgotten you. The ship has to be hulled and stay in orbit, dead, and soon you'll buy it too, unable to move, choking. Or it's a crash orbit and you'll buy it that way. What do you mean, buy it that way? You'll die that way, yeah. Or if you don't roast on the way down. Because they're coming out of orbit, right? So what are they going through on the way down? So their little capsule is going to heat up, isn't it? Okay. I think that's a good stop point. He's about to experience some acceleration. If you already know this, then it's just a review. If it's new to you, you want to put it down. Acceleration is a change in velocity. Any change in velocity. Do we remember what velocity is? No, not just speed. Velocity is how fast and in what direction, because velocity is what kind of a quantity? It's a vector quantity. Vector has direction and magnitude, okay? So velocity is a vector quantity. How fast and in what direction? If either of those things change, you have what? Acceleration. Any change in velocity, any change in how fast you're going or what direction you're traveling is acceleration. That's not common language, right? If you're driving along in a car and you slam on the brakes and you're slowing down quickly, do we usually say you're accelerating? No. Guys, In a car, you've got at least 3 accelerators, don't you? The gas pedal, the accelerator we usually call the accelerator, makes you go faster, right? Or if you let off of it, you might slow down. The brake will slow you down, or if you let off of it and you're going downhill, you can go faster. The steering wheel changes direction, so that also causes acceleration. If you're going up a hill as you're starting to go up, you're changing direction. If you're going cresting the top of the hill and starting to go down, you're accelerating. Any change in velocity is acceleration. Got it? Now, if you're slowing down, we would call it what? Deceleration or negative acceleration. But it's still acceleration. Recoil. They're about to fire them out of the ship. When they do, the ship is actually going to hop a little bit because it's firing those capsules down. Every time they fire a capsule down, there's a little pushback. Recoil, right? Anybody ever fire a rifle or a pistol? Hunters out here? Heck, even archery. When you fire that arrow, it's much less dramatic, but you do experience a recoil. Recoil is equal opposite application of force. What does that sound like? Newton's what? Newton's third law of motion, which states for every people love to forget the force word. For every action force. For every action force, there's an equal and opposite reaction force. The recoil is that reaction force. Does that make sense? Yes, no, maybe. Yeah. All right. Man, I'd love to read just a little. Yay. We have till what, 26? We did. Okay. Shh. Here we go. Don't be offended when you first hear something. Let me finish. Okay. All right, here we go. So he's thinking to himself in his head, oh, we might burn up on the way down. Then, we're on page 6, first fresh paragraph. Then the ship's braking program hit. It hit us and I stopped shaking. Because now, okay, he's going to get out and he won't feel trapped. 8 G's. What's a G? Force of gravity. So 8 G's means 8 times the force of gravity on Earth is what they're talking about. I would say, or maybe 10. When a female pilot handles a ship, there's nothing comfortable about it. You're going to have bruises every place you're strapped. Yes, I know they make better pilots than men do. Their reactions are faster and they can tolerate more G. They can get in faster, get out faster, and thereby improve everybody's chances, yours as well as theirs. But that still doesn't make it fun to be slammed against your spine at 10 times your proper weight. Is he insulting the female pilots? No. In fact, let's continue. But I must admit that Captain Deladrier, there we go, knows her trade. There was no fiddling around once the Roger Young stopped braking. At once, I heard her snap, centerline tube, fire. And there were 2 recoil bumps. As Jelly and his acting platoon sergeant unloaded. And immediately, port and starboard tubes, automatic fire. And the rest of us started to unload. Bump. And your capsule jerks ahead at once. Bump. And it jerks again, precisely like cartridges feeding into the chamber of an old-style automatic weapon. Well, that's just what we were. Only the barrels of the gun were twin launching tubes built into the spaceship troop carrier, and each cartridge was a capsule big enough, just barely, to hold an infantryman with all field equipment. Bump. I was used to number 3 spot, out early. Now I was tail end Charlie, last out after 3 squads. It makes a tedious wait, even with a capsule being fired every second. I tried to count the bumps. Bump 12, bump 13, bump 14, with an odd sound to it. The empty one, Jenkins, should have been in. So they fired an empty capsule. Bump. and clang. It's my turn as my capsule slams into the firing chamber. Then whambo! The explosion hits with a force that makes the captain's braking maneuver feel like a love tap. Then suddenly, nothing. Nothing at all. No sound, no pressure, no weight. Floating in darkness, free fall. Maybe 30 miles up, above the effective atmosphere, falling weightlessly toward the surface of a planet you've never seen. But I'm not shaking now. It's the weight beforehand that wears. Once you unload, you can't get hurt. Because if anything goes wrong, it will happen so fast that you'll buy it without noticing that you're dead. Hardly. Almost at once, I felt the capsule twist and sway. Then steady down so that my weight was on my back. Weight that built up quickly until I was at full weight, 0.87 G, and had been told for that planet. So that planet has a little less gravity than Earth. We'll talk about gravity later. For that planet, as the capsule reached terminal velocity for the thin upper atmosphere. So he was decelerating, right? He was slowing down. So he was starting to feel a little weight. A pilot who is a real artist, and the captain was, will approach and brake so that your launching speed as you shoot out of the tube places you just dead in space relative to the rotational speed of the planet at that latitude. The loaded capsules are heavy. They punch through the high, thin winds of the upper atmosphere without being blown too far out of position. But just the same, a platoon is bound to disperse on the way down, lose some of the perfect formation in which it unloads. A sloppy pilot can make this still worse. Scatter a strike group over so much terrain that it can't make rendezvous for retrieval, much less carry out its mission. An infantryman can fight only if someone else delivers him to his zone. In a way, I suppose, pilots are just as essential as we are. I could tell from the gentle way my capsule entered the atmosphere that the captain had laid us down with as near zero lateral vector as you could have asked. I felt happy. Not only a tight formation when we hit and no time wasted, but also a pilot who puts you down properly is a pilot who is smart and precise on retrieval. So he's like, okay, if we do our job and I make it out of here, the pilot is going to be there with the ship to come get us. Whew. So already feeling better about their odds. I'll stop there. You got about a minute and a half. What do you think? Action already, right? Okay. And I'm sorry I yelled at you for reading ahead, but I think you'll enjoy it more. Did anything I say help you understand? Kind of? Okay. That's the idea.